Hello and welcome to the Interior Design Business, the monthly podcast produced by the interior design community for the interior design community. Thanks very much. My name is Jeff Hayward and I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host Susie Rumbold, Creative Director of Tessuta Interiors and a past president of the British Institute of Interior Design.
We all know those crazy interior design TV shows where wannabe amateur designers try to cover themselves in glory, but more often than not end up covering themselves in paint. Love them or hate them, they make weirdly compelling viewing for practicing interior designers and the public alike. But do these reality TV shows bear any resemblance to what real designers do? How do they impact the public's perception of the interior design profession? What is it really like to be a contestant? And do the winners go on to become renowned designers in their own right? Welcome to the interior design business.
We are recording this episode in front of a live audience at the DesignCentral North West event being held in the magnificent 18th century Capesthorne Hall in Cheshire. We're lucky enough to be joined by influencer and stylist Siobhan Murphy of Interior Curve, Peter Grech, founder of the SpaceMaker Interiors, and Verity Coleman, founder of Rascal Roses. All three are former interior design talent show contestants, and today they're going to help us answer the burning question, is TV good for interior design?
Yes, indeed. We're so pleased to have you all here with us today. It's wonderful. I wonder, could you tell us briefly about your background before you appeared on television? Siobhan, do you want to kick that one off for me?
Yeah, so I worked for the NHS for 18 years. So I worked for NHS Digital, so I was responsible for communications, events, engagement, and that was my role, very corporate, corporate role really. But in my spare time, I loved fashion, making jewellery and interior design. So kind of always wanted to turn my passion and my hobby into a career really. But it took to be like 41 and appear on a show to kind of really give me the boost that I really needed to take that next step.
Fantastic. And Peter, what's your story?
So I grew up in Malta, and in Malta there wasn't really an interior design industry at the time, and so you could either become an architect or become a lawyer or a doctor. So I chose to become a doctor. Did that for a couple of years, came to the UK, practiced in the UK for a few years, and then and realised that all along my passion, I've always been obsessed with houses and homes, and I had actually done a degree in interior design before my medical degree. So I was like, I'm going to go back to my love, so that's where I went.
Amazing. And Verity?
So I was an army officer for 12 years before I became an interior designer. And I was actually already practicing as an interior designer when I was approached by the TV show that I was on and that the guys were on as well. But yeah, 12 years in the army, really enjoyed it, commissioned from Sandhurst, and then spent 12 years kind of at regimental duty and in staff jobs. But having had my second child, it kind of became quite obvious that myself and my husband, both being in the army, both kind of serving abroad, was not going to be very family friendly. So we both resigned our commissions. My husband is not an interior designer, he has another job. And I set up an interior design studio. So.
Now, Verity, I mean, that's a big leap to go from army to interior design.
It's not a regular route.
What about that leap from interior design to TV? How did that recruitment process come about?
Right. Well, I was happily running my interior design studio, had a mixture of residential and commercial clients. We'd been going kind of unofficially about 5.5, 6 years, kind of officially, properly registered, employing people for probably 4 to 5 years at this point. And I got a telephone call, I think an email first and a telephone call saying, we love your work, we've seen what you do, there's a new TV show coming out, it's not going to be like any other interior design show, it's going to be completely different, it's only going to be for professional interior designers, it's not going to be like anything else. I said, well, okay, so, I'm practicing already, so I can't go on a show that's, for amateurs or for people that aren't interior designers, because I've got paying clients and, you know, that would be awkward. They're like, no, not at all. Think interior design, think MasterChef, the professionals, compared to kind of MasterChef. These are all going to be people fully qualified for it. And I was like, okay. And they said, but, you know, we've been recruiting for the show for about a year. I don't know if you've seen. I was like, no. And they're like, well, you know, it starts in like 3 weeks' time. I was like, oh, okay, that's really quick. They're like, so would you be able to commit to that? And I was like, well, I don't know what I'm committing to. And they said, it's 8 weeks long, or 8 shows over 16 weeks, week on filming, week off filming. You know, do you think you could make that work? And I was like, well, you know, I've got an office job. I've got a real job, so we'll see. And it was all quite exciting to start with. And then on the day I arrived, they'd gone through everything, and I had to have a lot of interviews, jump through a lot of hoops because it was BBC, so you have to see a lot of people. And then the day I arrived, got to the studio, and they introduced everyone. They're like, this is Verity, and she's an army officer. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, that's absolutely not. And they're like, so, oh my God, I think it's amazing that you want to become an interior designer. I was like, that's what I do. Like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that, because for TV, it's better if we just focus on you being an interior, an army officer, rather than interior designer. I was like, yeah, but that's quite awkward, because people watching this like employ me as an interior designer. They're like, yeah, but it'll be fine, because you can just shout like an army officer, and it'll be really good for TV. I was like, excellent. Excellent. And that was basically how it unfolded.
Right. So they definitely came to you.
Yeah.
So then how did you come to be recruited, Siobhan?
So I got a DM on my Instagram from one of their casting agents, basically saying a similar thing. We absolutely love, you know, what you do, your style. So I have an Instagram account, which is an interior account, more interiors at that point than anything else. It's now, you know, evolved a little bit further. But so we are recruiting, we're casting for this show, Interior Design Masters. Have you heard of it? Obviously, I loved it. Saw the first series and just thought, oh my God, I always thought, oh, I would love to do that, you know, what they're doing.
So can I just to clarify, so you were on the first series,
Yes.
Verity, and Peter and Siobhan, you were on the second
Second
series.
series.
Okay,
That's right.
that sets our context for us. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'd seen the first season, absolutely loved it. If I'd have known before they got in touch that they were recruiting, I'd have been, you know, straight there filling out my application. So then I just went through the same process as anyone else, you know, casting calls, filling out application forms, loads of Zoom calls, you know, getting down, oh, you're down to the final 20, down to the next 10. Oh, right, okay, you're on now. When the reality really kicks in. So yeah, that was the process for me. Contacted through Instagram initially.
And did the same thing happen to you, Peter?
No, so I wasn't contacted. I happened to meet Verity, and who else was at the party? There was
Nikki
Ju
and Ju.
Nikki were at the same party in London. It was something hosted. It was the Etsy Awards hosted by Sophie Robinson,
by
and
Sophie.
who also happened to be on the show previously. And we just kind of like chatted and spoke about it. And since then, we kind of like remained in contact. And then since then, I saw the application form came out, and I was having conversations with them and all throughout saying, what do you think I should do? Da, da, da. And anyway, I was encouraged to just proceed for it. So I just applied, but I wasn't contacted. I wasn't asked to apply. I just applied myself. So,
And what were you doing for a job at that time?
So at that point, I had already resigned from medicine. I had already started up my own interior design company, and I was working on a handful of residential clients, which was really tricky to then continue that relationship with them while the film was going on, because as Verity explained, the schedule was quite intense.
I think the difference though with me certainly was when they approached me, they basically said, this is for amateur interior designers, so not, you know, people that had been doing it 4 or 5 years, and that's a totally different thing, isn't it? So I was kind of going into it thinking I'm going to learn loads.
So why do you think you were selected? What was their...
So I think with any kind of TV show, they're going to be looking for a mix, aren't they? They're going to be looking for maximalists, minimalists, you know, all these different types of styles. And I think they kind of saw my style as a maximalist, colourful style. So I'm guessing, yeah, really. So I'm guessing that was the thing, you know, that's what they wanted.
What about you, Peter?
I think I think since going through the process, I think I went into it very naively, but I think that as you're right, they have a very specific tick list of the type of people they want to hire and the type of people they want to bring onto that show. Because since being on the show, we've heard of stories of designers. Well, if someone is cast, there's always a number 2 And at number 2, I've met my number 2. And my number 2 is also European, also lives in Manchester, also has a male partner. So I was very surprised when I met my number 2, and he was very much like a mirror image of me. And I was just like, this is kind of weird. And there's number 2s that we know of as well, even on our show.
Oh my God, I hope there ain't another number 2.
I don't know.
There's only one.
You're pretty unique. You're very unique.
Siobhan, I
You're
think
very
you're
unique.
safe.
Yeah. But there were a number of other number 2s, which made it really interesting that there is a specific demographic that they're trying to target by me or by Verity. Siobhan obviously has the colour love, so it was really interesting for my eyes to be open to that when I was aware of it. It was just like, oh, I wasn't so,
So, obviously, you know the makeup of the people on your series, and you guys know the makeup. Would you say that there was a similar pattern? Is this pattern?
they're absolutely.
I think so. You can pick them.
It's quite strategic. Television does not happen by accident in the same way that, we're all sat in this room now. When you hear this episode, it will not sound exactly the same as it sounds now.
We definitely wanted an army officer for this.
Go on, exactly. It's, I think we all don't necessarily look at the detail, and you don't have to unless you're fully involved with it, but it is very strategically planned out. And if you look at a lot of the, particularly the BBC, a lot of their shows where they involve the public, there will always be an ex-army officer, an ex-police woman or man, an ex-doctor, and they like ticking those boxes because it's great for like the public to see stuff. It's great for people, it makes good television. And in the end, as much as we all like to think we were specially picked, a lot of it was set on a strategy, and it was set on a continuum. And if you fill the gap, you fill the gap, and if you don't, you don't. And I, like to think I was especially approached, but we're now in series 4, and I have had an email every series asking me if I'd like to be in the series. And I'm like, I've actually been on it already. And they're like, oh, sorry. So you realise you're not quite as special as you may imagine. I've actually been on series 1. Can I go again? And they're like, no, that wouldn't work for us. Okay, thanks.
Which I think is important when people apply, because I've had conversations with other designers, I've kind of coached a few other designers after I might was on the show, and some of them said, oh, I've applied for season 2 and season 1 or whatever, and I didn't get chosen, and they felt bad because they've never been chosen. And I'm just like, but you need to understand that they are looking for a very specific type of person, and usually that person needs to be not particularly shy, quite outgoing, comfortable in front of cameras. If you're a little bit bold, a little bit outrageous, that's all the better for good television. It doesn't necessarily reflect on you as a designer or your talents.
But it's got to fit in with the storylines and the planning of future episodes and what they want the lowdown to be for that series. So, things are not. It's not always in your gift as someone on this show to necessarily, it is really not in your gift. It's whatever is planned.
Okay,
beforehand.
so what do you think TV production companies actually care about most when they're making shows about interior design, Siobhan?
So obviously it's a TV show, isn't it? So it has to be entertaining. People are watching this, and certainly when we were on, it was lockdown, wasn't it? So people were watching, people were loving it because it was entertaining, and they like seeing the transformations, maybe a little bit of drama, we're spilling a bit of paint here and there, or, things are going wrong. There's always that little bit of a jeopardy kind of element as well, isn't there? But yeah, so I just think, they are looking, they're not interior designers. It's not a show that's run by interior designers. These are TV, producers. And they're wanting something that, that's going to translate as well to, people that are just watching in their living room that are not interior designers as well, just people that like to see a makeover, I guess.
But do you think they actually care about the interior design?
So, like Siobhan said, what the TV producers need to do is produce a show that people want to watch. Now, as a cohort of the entire population, the interior design industry is quite small. So they need to appeal to everyone, and what everyone does is live in a house, pretty much, that watches a TV. So what they're trying to produce is a show that essentially reaches all aspects of everyone owning a home. And what they've done is they put a spin on it, and instead of baking cakes this time, which everyone can do, we're all going to decorate houses. Yeah. And that is as far, essentially, as the vehicle for interior design goes. Yeah. And you know, I think the earlier, you know, people that take part accept that, which it took a lot of coming to terms with. And the earlier, you know, the industry as a whole realizes that, and the public realize this isn't what interior designers do, this is what interior designers on TV shows do, the easier we can all sleep at night.
It's an entertainment show, because I remember after, you know, talking about various issues with the producers after, and their final answer to me was, well, we are creating an entertainment television show for BBC Two at the time at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. What do you expect? And I kind of said, like, I'm like, I take my work very, very seriously. I take kind of like my relationships with my clients very seriously, my relationship with my vendors seriously, and the trades. And I feel that I take it very, very seriously. So I kind of expected the same quite naively of television. And I kind of said, like, but if the fabric is not fire retardant in a hotel room, that is a humongous issue. It's a massive liability issue. It's a health and safety issue. How is that not being taken care of? How can you say that we are installing this hotel room for this budget when it doesn't reflect
there's a detail. You don't need to worry about that, because there's like the TV,
exactly.
so it's fine.
Which I appreciate, obviously, as interiors, we are quite focused on the minutiae. We love that detail. We love, and it's important, and we have to kind of like pay that level of attention. But as you said, Joe Blogs sit in a random living room somewhere. That does not matter to them. It's quite tedious and boring actually to them, but to us we love that. but it doesn't, as you said, it has to appeal to the mass market audience, and that is what they're trying to do. Which in a way I don't blame them for, but also I think there could be a way of doing it that can actually showcase the level of work that true interior design does require.
So as interior designers, do you think, Siobhan, we need a reset when we're watching that sort of show, that actually manage our expectations? It's not going to be what we want it to be necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, we sat on the sofa a few times, didn't we? And, you know, the feedback was like, why did you make that choice? And we were always like, well, because like I didn't have any budget, I didn't have any time,
and I had
literally I was running around like a headless chicken
during lockdown.
So actually, you know, if it had been a real interior design client, we would have met the clients. Obviously, we would have had a conversation. We didn't get to do that every single week, obviously. We had a few Zooms, you know, at some points, but there was many times where we just got a brief on a piece of paper, so we never got to ask the questions to our clients, which we'd spend so much, you know, as an interior designer, you'd spend so much time doing that, you know, asking the questions, what do you want, what, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it was always really funny when they were like, well, why did you make that choice? And it was like, because literally I had 3 seconds
I think
and
that's
50
the
pence.
difficulty, exactly. Yeah, the difficulty with the specific show we were on was that the opinion of the show, or kind of the direction that went out of the show was, this is what real interior designers do.
Yes, because particularly you were the first series.
Yeah. So they told us it would be, you know, only professional interior designers. It would almost be like a learning concept where we would go into a studio, we would do all this work, and then we would deliver with experienced interior designers guiding us through the process.
No.
And I was just like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. You know, that sounds amazing.
That's not what happened.
Sign me up. Obviously, that is not how it happened.
So they sort of go through the motions in the sense that they give you
a brief.
So
we were given the briefs. I'm sure you guys were the same.
It's written by the production company.
The production company have a design team on them. They're not interior designers, but they have worked in TV and generally set design, that kind of thing. So a lot of background in TV and design, but not interior design. They set a brief, and the brief will be, you are going to a show home and you have to design a show home that will appeal to clients. Go off, here's your £500 budget, do what you will, and you'll be presenting this next Friday. So you work up your budget, and not only will you be presenting it on Friday, you'll be presenting on Friday, and it all has to be bought by Tuesday because you're installing it on Monday. Yeah, so you're like, okay, well, I'll go to B&Q and buy everything because that's the only place that will have everything I need for Tuesday. Fine. So you get there, you're about to present it, and then they bring the TV cameras in and they go, what we didn't tell you in the brief was, though, the client hates the colour blue. So if anyone's got the colour blue, you better change it. And you're like, but I bought everything. Well, that's really an interior design issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then they rile everyone up. Everyone's stood there going, so this was my design, but now I'm not doing that. So here's my noodle. And they're like, oh, you seem really stressed there. Is it because you're really bad at designing? Yeah, it is. And that's how the show works, like week after week, and you realise after the first week, like, oh, well, they must have just like messed it up, and then you realise that's fully the
This is
concept.
strategy. This is all the wind up for the cameras to get you so on edge.
And what
so
they
you know
would
this-
say is, it brings out your true personality because you're under pressure. And you're like, well, I mean, it makes everyone angry if you put everyone
would be
under
angry,
pressure.
of course, yeah.
But that's the, but it makes great television.
Come on, there must have been some positives. Siobhan, come on.
Yeah, I didn't have that experience at all. So literally, like, I designed and did all my briefs like without any curveballs. So I'm sorry you had to go through that, but it paved the way for us to,
Yeah, they may have changed it. They may have changed
Although
it.
the measurements of the huts though were wrong.
Oh
There's
yeah,
an error,
there were certain things that was like a little
few
bit
errors.
off, but hopefully no like colour changes.
Do you think that's because they wanted you to progress rather than Verity? They probably thought,
She'll be all right.
I mean, I
She's got
don't
an
know.
hour.
I mean,
got an
who
hour.
knows? I mean, for me, like I think you obviously went into it thinking it was going to be something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
I went into it seeing
Yeah.
that you
There was
you
more
had
of an
nothing
idea.
you
Yeah,
had nothing to go on, did
absolutely.
you? So
Yeah.
obviously I watched it and thought, oh my god, that's such an opportunity to do all these different commercial projects, because I guess as an interior designer you sometimes go down a niche, don't you? Like, oh, I'm just going to do hotels, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And actually being able to do a whole variety, of things, I absolutely loved. And, I was working for the NHS at the time. I was working in a really corporate job. I was looking at Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations. So for me, this was just like, oh my God, like living my best life. And, since it's been just amazing. It's made me able to give up my NHS job and do interior stuff full time. So for me, it was great. But I think, again, if you are thinking about going on to like an interiors TV show, I don't think you have to have no expectations, in terms of what's going to happen afterwards. Because I spoke to loads of people that have done it, different shows, where they think, oh my God, I'm going to go on this show and suddenly I'm going to be the next Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen.
Does anybody want that?
But, it's... You just kind of just do it and enjoy it if that's what you want to do.
I think you
Pete, I was
shouldn't.
going to say, Peter, was there anything positive that you took away from it, or was it just bad?
Well, it's taken me. I think it's taken me personally a lot of time to like really kind of like come to terms with the whole experience, and I think that comes from my expectation. I think I took it very, very seriously. I think I took it way too seriously. Like we were sat in hotel rooms at the end of the time. Like I'm just like, I would spend my entire time saying, but this is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy. So I think I learned that that's the world of television, and that is the world of what interiors on television is in the UK or at this moment. So I think that I realized that my world is real clients, high-end clients, not kind of like at those budgets which are depicted on television. And it's kind of helped me clarify my offering to clients. So that's looking good.
Were you tempted to walk out at any stage? Has anyone ever walked out?
Yeah, you signed quite a contract that is quite hard to break.
Right.
I can confirm. That, you can't
walk.
leave.
Okay.
It's because
I mean, you can, but you owe them a lot of money.
Yeah.
And as they pay you nothing, then it's quite
They
difficult.
pay you
to
nothing.
leave. Nothing.
No.
It's not a paid gig.
No.
It is not
You were
paid.
doing this out of the goodness of your...
Yeah.
And, but
Voluntary
there are
work.
TV shows where you do get paid. So I have subsequently done TV shows which are paid and are jobs, and that is a different prospect.
And it actually, in further, so I'm in contact with some of the people that are filming now, and in later episodes, they are getting a fee.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Which is good.
So if you get to a certain point,
Yeah.
I think you get like a one-off payment. It's not going to pay the bills, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's something. Yeah.
And that's another big thing, obviously, because we didn't get paid for it. That's another thing which, other than the budgets obviously being ridiculously small, is no one talks about the cost of design fees, which is massive. That clients need to understand that we don't do this as a charity. We are running our own businesses, and business is there to be profitable, and we have our own overheads and our own lives and our own mortgages that we need to pay, and
rent and salaries
rent
and everything else.
Yeah.
and lovely lifestyles as well. So
Yeah.
it needs to be paid for, and we don't need to apologise for it. So
Yeah.
I mean,
And you talked about it being an 8-week schedule.
16 weeks.
16 weeks for
16
you.
weeks.
So
Eight-
8 for you.
Eight on, 8 off. So they film every other week.
Yeah,
So
so
you have a week to prep.
The week that you're off, you're designing and sourcing for the next week. So you're not filming, but you're incredibly busy trying to source a £5 chair
How challenging was it to work within TV show constraints?
I mean, where do you start? It's completely
It depends what the challenge is.
Yeah, I completely understand why it's done in the way it's done, because that's incredibly efficient for their point of view, because they can get the crew members in. It's obviously, I mean, when you're there, the production team is huge, it's massive, so you can understand why it's done that way, because it's very efficient from their side. But interior design takes months, years even, to come, to fully finish a project. So it's the timelines of television are totally opposite to the timelines of interior. So polar opposites, I would say.
Talk to me about some of the crafting and the upcycling and stuff that they get you to do. No, come on, that's obviously the subject
oh my
dear
God,
to your heart.
it
Go on,
literally
Verity,
is.
kick it
So
off.
if you say you're an interior designer, people say, oh, you must be really good at making stuff. And I go, well, no, because I got really good people at making stuff that make stuff for me. Yeah, but you must know how to upholster a chair. Why? I'm not an upholsterer. I pay a professional whose job it is to upholster stuff. They're like, yeah, but you must know how to do it. I mean, I guess it's the equivalent of asking like a racing car driver, but you can fix a car, right? Because you drive a car all the time. It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same, but in the world of TV, it is the same.
I think it
It's
makes
just the same.
television more interesting, because obviously what our work is mostly having meetings with clients, having
And
meetings
filling in
and
spreadsheets.
lots of computer stuff. So it's actually not as engaging maybe visually until the transformation happens. So I understand again why you are asked to craft a lot, you're asked to make a lot. And obviously people who have those skills, it's great that you can enrich a project with that. But as a professional interior designer, it's very unlikely that you would ever make your own curtains for a client, God forbid, or upholster a sofa for them. Even if you are talented enough to have, so Michaela on our show, she
is an upholsterer.
Is an upholsterer, so she has that skill set, which is great. And a few people can stretch some fabric around a board and call it a headboard, and you can kind of stretch yourself that way. But I feel it also kind of undervalues our incredible services and makers that we employ to do that. So we employ incredible craftsmen and women to make sofas, and we employ artists to create beautiful art on the wall.
Yeah.
We had to create our
Yeah,
own art.
one of the week 2, you have, or week
our-
1 was it? You have to create a
Create your
bespoke
own-
piece of artwork.
And I'm just I'm not an art. I wouldn't call myself an artist, and I feel ashamed to go up to my artist client and friends and then propose art to my clients. I'm like, yeah, so I created this out of a sheet and some leftover paint.
It was really good. I love that.
Thank you. But I'm very, and I guess, and that's the thing, you can't take it seriously. It is just
But
to
also,
create entertainment.
from a TV perspective, they're trying to reach an audience at home,
Who would
and
be
an
doing
audience at
DIY?
home wants to
DIY
know
audience.
what
Yeah.
can I make, what can I do, how can I take something and upcycle it or do that. And we're all, I don't think any of us are anti-upcycling.
Yeah. Oh, God, no.
I'm very pro-upcycling, just not when I'm doing it.
I think the main difference is
Not me.
that you guys were both doing interior design before you went in.
Yeah.
And I wasn't.
Yes, yeah.
So literally, I was like, yes, I will do all the crafty makes. give me the gold leaf, give me the paint, whatever.
Pass the
Give me
glitter.
the trims. Yeah. So, whereas obviously, you weren't doing that in your kind of professional life.
No.
So I think there's that. I think the difference is that expectation as well,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Absolutely.
So.
And I guess exactly because I took it very seriously, I was just like, how
Yeah.
dare you ask me to create a piece of art? It's insulting to artists to ask me to do that. It's so more just I found it's insulting to my trade and to my suppliers to ask me to do that. I can't sew a curtain. I learned to sew on the show, which is a great skill to have.
Yeah,
but
you're good now, aren't you?
Well,
Everybody were like, oh, can you just sew us this piece?
don't ask me to make your curtains because it's just I can't do that. So yeah, I think again it's a focus on kind of who the target audience of the show is versus who the target audience for professional interior designer is, and those are different people.
Yeah.
I would say.
And I think as well, I guess you were saying about the sofa and stuff. It's that knowledge, isn't it, of somebody that's not in interiors saying, "Oh, can you just reupholster this
Exactly.
Chesterfield?
Yeah.
You've got 2 hours,
And,
we'll beat
and
the
you've
fabric."
got £500 to do the rest of the room, but if you could just crack on and do the sofa
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Because on TV you can just upholster a chair by putting some fabric around it, stapling it at the back and putting it on the side, and they're just we won't film that side. That is how TV works. Don't worry if you can't finish painting the room. Well, it's fine. We won't film that wall. Like
It's
that
kind of
is how
stage
TV
setting.
works.
Yeah,
You know,
it is stage setting.
It is how it is. The problem is then when they say, "Oh, they did this room in 4 hours." Well, I mean, they didn't because you're not showing that wall. But you know,
And also,
Yeah.
there's the when we leave those rooms, the production team
Go
has
through.
to go in and finish them off. So we would spend collectively a group of, if there's 8 of us and there's £1,000 a room, then we spend £8,000. But then the production team go in and spend another £40,000 finishing the
or
rooms
putting
off,
them right, or putting them
putting
back.
them right, putting wallpaper up properly.
Blitzing them in white again. That's what generally happens. So if the clients don't like it, despite what they say or don't say on film, when they go back and they say, "Do you like this room?" No. Okay, well, we'll white
So
it
the
out
total
again.
cost
They just
actually is
repaint it.
all of that, but that's not really discussed
Yeah.
openly on the show.
That's where the
That's
budget
very
goes.
interesting.
That's where a lot of the budget goes. More than
and
goes
paying
on
the
designing it.
hosts. And paying the hosts, obviously.
If you go back into the history, into ancient history, and you look at changing rooms, I'm sure we all remember changing rooms. And there was one particular episode where
Tea sets.
they
tea-
the
the
famous
teapot.
tea
teapot.
The teapot.
If
yeah.
anyone hasn't ever seen that, you can see it on YouTube. It's basically this woman has a collection of antique ceramics, and they put a hanging shelf in and don't fix it into a joist correctly.
And
And when they come back into the room, every single piece
£50,000
is in a
worth
million
of
pieces.
teapot.
Yeah, and it's just like, how much did that cost them to replace? Well, they couldn't have replaced those
No, I
items.
think, yeah. She's
But that's-
still, they interviewed her now, kind of 20 years afterwards.
And she's still
I'm still
traumatised.
pretty angry.
I'm sure.
But that's what created great television.
But we're all
It's
talking
really
about it.
controversial. It's
Yeah.
a massive catastrophe, and it creates great television. As an interior designer, it's the most awful
And
thing
this
that
poor
you think.
contestant
Yes,
sobbing in
Of
Linda's
course,
arms.
yeah.
It's just awful.
But
Yeah.
they'll be like, just film closer.
yeah,
Just get
that's
up.
great television.
Okay, Verity, what things does TV get right about interior design?
Well, I live in hope that this is like the start of the ball rolling, that one day, maybe in some years' time, there will be a realistic programme about interior design, like a positive programme that shows what interior designers do, in the same way that kind of cookery shows have like got better and better, and there's more and more of them. And now there's some really, as far as I know, although I'm not a chef, and maybe a chef will tell you there isn't, some high-end programmes about what, really skilled individuals do. Maybe this is the process we need to go through until people are interested enough in the details. And at the moment, it's just like the intro to interior design. And hopefully we can build on that, and get something that someone wants. Because people love grand designs. And even that is more in the nuts and bolts of it than the kind of makeover shows. People do like that. The makeover shows are there as well, but they still watch, the architects and the, people having disasters with their sewers and their foundations. There is an appetite for it. They just need to kind of mash them together properly, I think. But maybe, maybe that's just a question across the industry. Still people ask what interior designers do. TV or no TV.
Do you think it makes it more accessible
Exactly,
though?
yeah.
Because that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I always get like loads of messages from people like saying you've kind of made it a little bit more like I'm actually thinking about, all right, well I could have an interior designer then, like, in my house, whereas maybe 10 years ago they'd have thought that's just for somebody that's like super rich to have an interior designer. So maybe it is that like more, making it like a bit more real and a bit more accessible for people. So that's something that I always talk about, when people are like, oh, well, I've never thought about an interior design. I'm like, yeah, but actually it could save you money in the long run because you're not going to make costly mistakes on
it'll only
a big
cost
piece
you
of
£500 a
furniture.
room.
And I can do it in 18 hours.
So, yeah. I mean, are people watching these shows thinking that's what, because it is badged as like an amateur, what we were on, it
exactly.
was badged as, it wasn't badged as like we are all professionals and we know absolutely everything. It was kind of badged as we're here to learn as well and to kind of practice and do stuff. So, but you're right. I think like a program, like the Master Chef of like interior design,
That would be great.
would be
We should do that.
amazing.
There's definitely, there's what it does is I feel like it shows, because I think interior design is incredibly powerful. Like we've all been there with our clients when they walk into the finished room and we've offered them a beautiful turnkey service and they say, oh my God, it's done. Everything's beautiful, it's perfect. And it's their dream and you've delivered that. And that's incredibly powerful. And I think television allows us to showcase a bit of that experience. And video is one of the more powerful ways of doing it. So I think there's a huge power for it. And I think people love their homes. Like we we're obsessed with our homes. We spend so much time in them. So why shouldn't we be more interested in the process and actually, and also kind of like how an interior designer thinks about the space differently to how you might just standardly think about it. So, you know, and the forms of pattern and color and how we use them and that conversation, like, and it's lovely that we have a platform to do that as opposed to just our websites and our social media accounts. But yeah, it's I think it's good that it does kind of like show people that there is more going on behind.
So how has your exposure as an interior designer impacted your career as an interior designer?
So being on the show impacted
Yes. Your real life.
my real life.
How has it improved you?
Oh, well, interesting. Well, as I said, it's clarified to me who my ideal target client base is, and it's clarified to me kind of like where I want my business to grow to. It has kind of like given obviously my social media a bit of a boost, it's given my website a bit of a boost. So it's a very good PR exercise. As you know, it's kind of like that's one way of going into so many people's living rooms and being in front of them. And so that's a really good exercise in that regard. But you also have to be aware that you might not be in the right person's living room. You might need to be, you might be in the wrong postcode where people
And
are
have you
watching
had
you.
clients come to you because of
I've
doing
had
the show?
some of the I've had one client who came to me because they saw the show, but then my clients have kind of, I feel like they vet me on multiple platforms. So they see me on the show, then they like kind of some of the aesthetic things I did, and then they would vet me on social media and on my website, and then see me speaking, and hopefully it gives them a flavor of what it would be like to work with me. And so I have had 2 clients come to me from the show, but more clients have come to me from my work and the body of work that I have and award-winning and that kind of thing. So.
Verity?
Yeah, I mean, it's touch points, isn't it? I think, I
Yeah.
think we always talk about PR and touch points, and someone's got to see you, then they've got to see you somewhere else, and they've got to read about you, then they've got to, and I don't know what, I'm sure Jeff knows much more than I do how many times that's got to be, but, you can't underestimate being on a BBC show, despite, I've just told everyone, they ask a lot of people, but, you are on there and you do have a platform, albeit it might not be the one I would have chosen. It definitely gives you greater exposure. You can't deny that. Television is television, and in this country particularly, there's still a little bit of like, ooh, they're on TV. I would hope, like Peter, I don't think anyone watched anything I did on that show and went, oh my God, she's the one.
Well, do you get stopped in the street, Verity?
I do not get stopped in the street.
You get stopped in the street.
Siobhan, I reckon Siobhan does. She's
So
way
subtle.
better. She's much better at PR than we are. I think
Camouflage.
someone at school's child came up to me and said, my mum thinks you're on TV. I'm like, well, yeah. Kind of, yeah. But, it's helped. And then I got another, 2 TV shows off the back of that, which was...
Tell us about those.
So that was presenting, that was another interior show, that was doing up my unique B&Bs, so it was people's B&B spaces. And that was just, like, for me, a really nice show to be on. It was a much smaller crew, only a crew of kind of 12. And that was still not quite interior design, but it was nicer people. You were working with the clients more. You actually got to do something that was quite positive. And, as a separate job, that was lovely. But again, I underestimated how much time it would take up and, have the day job. So it doesn't really fit in. But in terms of options and the other options it gives you, if you want to be in TV and it's something you want to do, you should go in just with that in mind, and it's fine. I just don't think you can go in thinking you'll come out as a TV. You're not going to come out as Kelly Hoppen if you go on one of these shows. Is the bottom line.
But you could come out. You could come out as Siobhan Murphy.
Well, exactly. You could.
Yes,
no one wants that.
Yes, this has been transformational for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just been, it's totally changed my life, really. So it's been amazing. Yeah, I loved everything about it. So I can remember having a chat with one of the producers, like at the end, at the final. And I said, God, it's just been a total like crash course in interior design, learnt so much, obviously met some great people, and I felt like that I had, grown and like was thinking about the space differently and everything. And they said, yeah, but it's also been a crash course in TV. And I guess going into it, I was just thinking, oh my God, I'm so excited to get the brief, to do the designs, to, do all the sourcing and everything. I never actually even thought really about the TV side. And I really enjoyed the TV side because for me, that was quite exciting. And then obviously, all my pals, watching it every week. And, I absolutely loved that element of it. And I know a lot of people don't like that element. So again, you know, if anybody is thinking about it, I think you need to think of the two things. You need to think, right, I'm going to be doing stuff. I'm also going to have a camera here, you know, 24/7.
A lot of the day, yeah.
And you do now get regular TV appearances as a result, because I did see you on Good Morning Britain.
Oh, yeah, well, let's not talk about that. Yeah, I do a regular interior slot on Channel 4 on Steph's Packed Lunch, which is really fun. It's live, so obviously that's a little bit of an extra fun element. And yeah, I'm filming some BBC pilots as well at the moment, so that's quite exciting. Yeah, all interior stuff. Yeah.
So the prize, if we go on to that, the prize for winning is usually described as a career-defining interior design contract to design a commercial space. How does that work?
Well,
You're the one that could answer this.
Well, honestly, we didn't know where it was until about week 5, I think.
Which is by the part I was gone by then.
Yeah, so we kept saying, what is it? What is it?
They're lost, darling, they're lost.
So, yeah, it was kind of like, well, you know, we're doing all this, but does anybody know what we're going to win? Like, if we win, like, what's the prize? So I think on ours, it was, the prize was to do a hotel room, wasn't it, at another place?
A bedroom, yeah, a bedroom.
So I don't know if it's really, you know, career defining, but it's a good opportunity, of course, isn't it? Doing anything like commercial for, you know, a large hotel chain is going to be good on the CV when that's your first kind of paid job, really, I guess.
And is it a paid job?
I wasn't bothered about winning that,
I
though,
don't think it
really.
was paid financially.
I
ours
think,
wasn't.
Yeah, I think it was. So the small issue about it that I had was just like the contract is written by the production company and the hotel chain.
Not
so
the individual.
it's not your contract.
Yeah.
Which I'm just like, it has to be if I'm doing any work, it has to be my contract. So I think it's paid. I think it's probably better to kind of speak directly to the person who's actually done it. But I know that there is paid, and it's a relationship which is set up for you by the production company, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Okay. How far do you think the judges on these shows are actually qualified to be judges?
Verity, you've got to take that one. I love the face you put in.
Where do we start?
I think if it were a show for interior designers and that's what they were judging it on, they probably would have got an interior designer in. And really, the clue is in the judges themselves. None of the I'm trying to think of going through. Some of them have done interior design, the judges. None of them, I would say, are primarily interior designers, including the
There's a
head
few,
judge.
like Sophie.
Sophie, yeah,
Yeah,
she
Sophie
doesn't do
She's-
private
she's
interior
a-
design
she's a
at the moment.
she's a stylist.
Yeah, she mainly does television stuff.
Yeah.
I guess it depends. I guess you have to also bear in mind that the people that are interested in doing these kind of shows are people who, also from a PR point of view, are interested in being in the media. So it's a bit of it's different to when you go to a peer-reviewed interior design awards process versus a television process, because the television process has to be someone that is interested in being on television or wants to grow
Their key role there is
media.
presenter rather than
But
technical
when
judge.
they're on the television, they spout these judgments
Yes, they
about
do.
blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, and a response to the brief and this, that, and the other. And it just makes me wonder, you know, are they being fed that
Yes.
by someone?
So essentially, as you're doing whatever the makeover is and everything else, there is a running commentary from production back to the judges. And it is like, oh, there was a big discussion about the wallpaper and whether X should use Y's wallpaper, and then you will see it comes back in the edit, and they go, oh yeah, well, you know, or you can see someone thought about which wallpaper to put on this room. Well, you can't see that because there's one wallpaper. Well, clearly, you know, if the team had been more together, this wouldn't have happened. So it's very choreographed, and I think
it's scripted reality.
Yeah.
I would say.
You know.
But also, I mean, the judges. As a contestant, it's really infuriating because you've obviously, you know, gone crazy over this room for the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks or so, and you pour your heart into it, and obviously things don't go right because you're out of process. You're not working within your natural process, and then you hear, and you know, the first time you hear any feedback is when you watch the television show months later. Or if you're on the sofa, even then that's a different situation. But anyway, and so the feedback that you're hearing is just like, how would they have possibly known that? They weren't ever there during the process. And normally, obviously, when you do a client reveal, you walk them through the space and explain everything and explain the detail about everything. You're not there to do that to the judges who are just walking into a room effectively abstractly. They wouldn't have necessarily seen, you wouldn't have presented to them. So it's a bit kind of like really frustrating for you as a designer. It's like, I want to show you this, I want to show you this, and this is why I did that, and this is why I did that. But yeah, it can be very, very tricky. And I guess, I mean, it's people who, as I said, it's kind of, it's that balance of,
It's a TV show.
Yeah.
It's entertainment.
It's a TV show.
And I think from a viewer's point of view, they probably want to see people that they know, they recognise, that
Yes,
may have
exactly.
seen their work before, they've seen them on a show before. So if it was just like a load of people that are in the interiors world
Of
that
course,
they've
yes.
never heard, they don't know from Adam, then, you know, that's probably not going to be as good to watch. So you've got to kind of think about it from that viewer's
The
point of
audience
view as
point of
well.
view.
It is
Yeah,
a television show, which
Yeah.
again goes to why there's a comedian as a judge, as a host, sorry, because he brings in people, it brings in viewers, of course, because there's people that love his comedy, and that makes sense. They wouldn't necessarily put an incredible but relatively unknown to the general public interior designer, even though how incredible they may be. A comedian who is well known will bring in more viewers. It's as simple
It's a
effectively.
presenting job,
It's a
isn't it?
presenting
It's a
job. So
presenting
it is television at the end of the day. So we kind of have to like bring it back to that. We can't take it so seriously. It's a television show. It is just pantomime.
Interesting. So why do you think TV interior design contests make professional interior designers want to shout at the television?
Process. The process is completely different. The process of television is different to the process of interior design, and the process that I go through with my clients is weeks and months long at the shortest. You know.
Well, yeah,
I
but
mean,
there's process, there's
Yeah.
costings, there's
think-
the
yeah.
reality of everything.
That's going to
you
make
know.
really boring TV, though, isn't it? Let's be fair. If it's just somebody like looking at a spreadsheet for an hour,
Yeah.
I'm not going to want to watch that, and I love interior design.
it's exactly the process is different, and the end goal is different. So what television wants to do is create engaging content for people to sit and watch and bring revenue in from advertising, obviously. But what interior designers want to do is create beautiful spaces and be really pedantic about detail and box please.
Interior design isn't about personalities, whereas these shows are very personality driven. They're about the people in the shows as much
Yes,
as they are the topic, and you can take that across, you know, a Bake Off,
Or the
Interior Design
pottery show,
Masters,
the
pottery
dressmaking
show, the
show,
jewellery
that- yeah.
show. In the end, what people are watching for isn't necessarily even the subject, it's the people,
Is the people
in it.
yeah.
And, you know, interior design is certainly not about impressing your personality on a client, really.
So you mentioned Grand Designs. What's your favourite show about interior design on TV?
I quite like watching 60-Minute Makeover.
Oh, really?
As a show.
That's ironic, isn't it?
I mean, as a show. But the thing is, people have accepted now that nothing is possible in 60 minutes, and all of a
can't
sudden
bake a
everyone's
cake in
like,
60
oh, that's ridiculous. But I still like watching it. I like seeing how many trays they can get in 1 metre square area at the same time. You know, they can get the electrician, the plasterer, the decorator, all in there on the same square metre.
Yeah.
Love it.
Siobhan, what's your top one?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I used to love changing rooms back in the day. That was like, I used to, you know, grew up like in the 80s, like watching that, seeing all the disasters. I loved Sophie Robinson's recent one. I thought that was really, really good. Obviously, she's an interior designer, stylist, and I thought that was a really, really nice show. Used to love Great Interior Design Challenge.
Yeah.
I would say that was close, you know, that
Yeah.
was quite seemed more about process.
Yeah.
But I just love
Seemed like it.
the high-end stuff, the low-end stuff. Like, I love it all. Yeah.
Peter, I'd imagine you're sitting in a dark room crying every night while watching TV.
It's had to sell his telly. You
don't
can't watch
watch
the
it.
telly
Yeah,
anymore.
since being on the show, I must admit I can't watch
Your favourite
television the
your
same
favourite
way.
interior design show is Game of Thrones.
No,
Bridgerton.
I do like. Actually, I'm a big fan of I think in the US they do it slightly differently. I think because it's particularly not a competition show. So there's Shay and Sid McGee who do
Dream Home Makeover.
Dream Home Makeover.
Yeah.
There's Nate Berkus and Jeremiah Brent who do By Design, and I think their process it shows more of the real process. Obviously, they have a celebrity status in the United States. They can get £70,000 worth of appliances for free. But they do reveal that yes, a kitchen does cost £150,000 to do, and it's a huge amount of money. I appreciate, but But it shows the real process. Like, yes, we're demoing. Yes, there's an issue. We can only identify that issue during demo, and therefore it's going to affect our budget. It's going to affect our lead times, etc. And it's kind of like even though it may be a little bit on the slightly drier side, but I think in the US they kind of, because it's not a competition show, it's kind of more about the emotion and also the emotion between the designer and their clients.
But there's an element of voyeurism too, because it gets you into some amazing houses.
Exactly, yes. And because they do
houses.
they do homes at a higher level, kind of like, I think minimum 20 to 1.2. It's like their home budgets are just a bit more comfortable.
I think in this current climate, though, that's not a show that's going to go down very well. Like like people want something that maybe, they can aspire to, but also that's kind of within reach as well, I think. Yeah. So, a kitchen for 150 grand is going to kind of put a lot of people off, I would say.
It might do, yeah. I think in the UK it's different to the US, and that's why I say it's a different market, and I think that's why the shows are different in the different places,
And do you think the public make the difference in their minds? If the public are our target customers, do you think they understand the difference between something that's like a show for a bit of fun and actually something that's more like a documentary, like Grand Designs? Do they make the distinction, do you think?
I think it comes down to depending on who your target client is. So I would say if you're an interior designer working within mid to high-end residential interiors, your client, when they land on your website, when they see your Instagram, when they see your work, regardless of what's happening on a television show, they should be able to tell that what you do is a professional fit-out kind of like company, and that you design things properly, that the budgets are going to be completely different, that we are going to be talking about budgets which are more realistic, and that the lead times are going to be completely different. So I think clients who understand interior design and have gone through the process do know the difference. I think probably maybe Joe Blogs on the street maybe doesn't, because it is a luxury service at the end of the day.
Perhaps
so
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because it is just entertainment. So maybe that's the difference, I would say, maybe.
Great discussion. We're going to have one more question, then we're going to open up to the floor. What advice, let's start with Verity. What advice, Verity, would you have for designers wanting to appear on TV?
What advice would I have? If you would like to get into TV, you should go on a TV show. If you want to carry on designing, you don't have to go on a TV show to be better at designing, I think would be my advice. Horses for courses. It's not the work, have no regrets. You do what you do, but it won't necessarily elevate you in terms of if you are already a professional designer. That's what I would say.
Siobhan, what advice would you have?
I guess there's two strands, isn't there? I think it's like, if you're a designer already, it's a totally different thing that if you're doing a job like me that was, in the NHS, or you're in the army and you want a total change in career, then that's like, there's two different strands to it. And again, it's kind of, not even the end goal really. I'd say, are you going to enjoy it? Are you going to go into this and, do a different brief every week? Are you going to enjoy it? Are you going to get something out of it? Are you going to learn some skills? Are you going to meet some really nice people? One of the great things, and I'm sure Peter will agree, I'm hoping he will,
I know what you're
is
going to
the
say,
fact that we've got such a little family, haven't we? We've got a WhatsApp group, and we are on there every day.
Yes.
We meet up all the time.
We're going on holiday together.
We're going on holiday together next week. Not just the two of us, although obviously. So even if you don't take anything like that, anything else away from it, we have got our own group of cheerleaders that
and a shared experience, and an amazing, unique experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's what you make of it, and it's what it's the expectations initially, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's like, am I going to enjoy doing this? Because fundamentally, you want to enjoy what you're doing, don't you? And
definitely.
that shows with everything in life, really.
Yeah. And so I would say, just don't take it too seriously. It is just television. It's just, it's kind of like, think of it as like being on a stage or being in a pantomime. It's kind of on that scale. Like, just enjoy it, just have fun.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to come across as a professional interior designer.
But you won't ever manage that.
So just try and enjoy it. And I think if I tried to enjoy it more and I tried to be a bit more relaxed, I would have probably had a better time with it, I think.
Wonderful.
So,
Brilliant.
Okay, so we're now going to open up to questions from the floor. So if anyone has a question that they'd like to ask any of our panelists, can they please put their hand up?
Hello, my name's Megan, and I work with the very lovely Fiona Watkins from Fiona Watkins Design. So we've talked about the process being very different, as we know. How on earth did you get your head round working in that new process when, like you say, Peter, everything we do is in such detail, and then all of a sudden you've got a week to pull everything together? I can't even imagine the pressure of that time.
Given that time constraint, other restraints obviously come into play, because you can't look at anything that's got longer than a 2-day lead time, or anything that's not on Amazon, essentially. So you can design anything you want as long as it is deliverable the next day.
Yeah.
And I don't live in London, I live in the countryside, so I can't go down to Habitat or down to any of the potentially in budget and nice shops. So I could go to TK Maxx, and whatever was in TK Maxx in Hereford, I could buy that. And then I could go to Dunelm, and then B&Q, and then Amazon.
We couldn't even do that because we filmed in lockdown.
You were in COVID though, weren't you? Yeah, so you were online.
So we couldn't even go to any shops.
Charity shops, or if you, quite luckily, I know of a lot of like antique vendors that would just open for me. And
that's good.
But like really, really budget, like vintage furniture, and that's the only way you can kind of get enough furniture. So you kind of have to throw your process out of the window, which is why a lot of errors happen.
You just think more set dressing.
Can I throw a side question into you? Did they check your budgets? Were they actually
Yes,
checking
penny
to make
for
sure?
penny, receipt for receipt.
Absolutely.
Really strict. Painfully. So you imagine a room plan and then buy things to go in it.
Yeah.
Hopefully the colour you want.
So you don't have time to draw elevations properly. You don't really have time to like properly assess scale, because you don't have ceiling heights. You don't have reflected ceiling
and you're like,
plans.
could you tell me how big the windows are or how many there are? Oh, we haven't got that. So
what the openings are like nothing. Yeah, the reveals, none of that.
Okay.
None of that.
Shall I just make some curtains then? Yeah, just make some curtains and then they'll fit. What will they fit? Whatever's there.
What the headers are like. Like you don't have any of that information.
So
it's completely.
I don't know how you did it.
It's kind of like buy some fabric and throw it at the wall and hope it fits.
Yeah. There are definitely on my series, there was definitely a lot of stapling of curtains to the walls.
Oh, I'm going to say now, I didn't staple any curtains. Mine were all professionally made. Can I just put that out there? Put that on camera.
Ridiculous. You just have to.
Yeah, you can't follow your regular process that you would normally do, so you kind of have to become inventive with it.
Yeah. We have our own workshop, and I still couldn't get them made in time.
And do you think, have you had to kind of re-educate any clients? I know you said you've only had 2 since the show that had watched the show. Do you think they've needed re-education as to how the process works, or do you think that's not really been an issue?
We've been quite lucky. We haven't really had a kind of crossover particularly, which is fine. People like watching telly. I think deep down everyone knows it's TV. I think, and they would soon learn if they asked for the cost of a room fee. Then they would.
Yeah, the moment you have your first consultation, which has to be paid, like it's like from that moment onwards, the relationship changes. So.
So, any other questions? Anybody else want to? Yes, yes, go on.
Thanks. Hi, it's Fiona from My Deco Marketing. Just first of all, thanks for coming on, because this is really interesting and fun and entertaining. I'm really enjoying it. I just wanted to ask you, what's been the best opportunity? People go on TV and then all sorts of like interesting, exciting, crazy opportunities come their way. What's been the best opportunity that's come to you after you did the show? And also, has it brought any kind of anything that you've not been so happy about?
I guess when I'd done the show, I was still working for the NHS, and we were talking about weeks on, weeks off. I was working my NHS job, and then we would do the filming and everything. When I got halfway through, I had to come clean with my boss and say, actually filming a show. I was just taking annual leave, yeah. Wow. So it got to halfway, and I thought, oh right, okay, I'm really running out of annual leave now. I'm gonna have to come clean. And she was like,
working Christmas Day now.
I was wondering why you were doing a week and then a week off and and I was like, I kind of got away with it. But then towards the end, I had to take unpaid leave. So so that was quite I was quite senior in the NHS, decent salary, all that kind of stuff. So it was a really big decision for me. But I can just remember the day that the final aired, the next day I logged onto my computer and I would, do my NHS job, and I just had this wave of sadness. I had this wave of sadness come over me, and I just thought, I've had all that excitement, and now I'm back doing this, And I thought, no, I'm not doing it. So I can remember my husband was working at home at the time, and I went into his office, and I just said, Nick, I'm going to have my notice in today. And he was like, oh, yeah, you should do, actually. And he's quite cautious.
Your
like,
husband's lovely.
I'm the spontaneous one, really, in the relationship. He's like, but like, because he just said, yeah, you should, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to do it now. I waited till my boss had logged off. I could see that she wasn't online anymore. Did my resignation on email. And then, yeah, and I think that just kind of shifted everything, like my frame of mind, because it was like, right, I've got to make this work now. So in terms of opportunities, I got a message saying, Siobhan, we love your work, da-da-da. Do you want to write a book? Have you thought about writing a book? And I was like, yes, I have thought about writing a book. Let's write a book. So I literally, after the show, did a little mood board type of thing, and it was all the things that I wanted to do. So I wanted to do more TV, I wanted to do some more commercial projects, I wanted to write a book, I wanted to have my own fashion range, all these, I wanted to have my own interiors range, and it was like all these things that I want to do, right, I need to manifest this. So yeah, in terms of Instagram work as well, I'm earning like 4 times what I earned when I worked for the NHS now. So again, it's like, right, I'm actually living my best life, doing doing really what I want to love, but also, I'm earning a really good income as well, which is what we kind of work for as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's been like a win-win for me, but definitely the exposure has brought some really exciting opportunities that, like I've got an agent who's like, do you fancy doing this, Siobhan? It sounds a bit weird. And I'm like, yes. So I worked with like Joel Corey. We did like a bedroom makeover for like one of his singles. And, all that kind of stuff is like just really fun. So, yeah, I think you just got to use it as an opportunity to do other things, really.
Hiya, I'm Jessica. I'm like a freelance home furnishings designer. I was just wondering if you've already got commitments to clients. Obviously, you said you've only given 3 weeks in advance to sign up to the show. How do you approach them and tell them that you're not going to have the time to? You've already committed to spending time on
just ghost
their
them.
jobs.
Just ghost guys.
Very professional. I like it.
That's a joke, by the way.
We didn't go with that option in the end. So I was lucky because I have 3 other designers that work for me, so they picked up a lot of the kind of heavy lifting over that period. But essentially, I was doing the show, and then, when that finished, after 14 hours of filming, I was then having to get onto my laptop and answer important clients that, my designers couldn't answer, and deal with that, and speaking to suppliers and paying the bill, because at the time I was the accountant as well, so I'm paying the bills and paying the wages. I wouldn't recommend it if you are busy. You do need a period of time before you decide to embark on a TV show. That would be good advice as well.
You were doing the same, weren't you? You were like working like on a night and stuff.
I had to ask Helen Carr to wait 20 minutes until I answered an electrician phone call, because we had an install happening at the same time.
Yeah,
so I was just you need to wait. You just need to wait until I take this phone call, because you're being paid, I'm not. This is what's paying me, so I need to answer this phone call. So.
In terms of answering the question, is TV good for interior design? I think I've come to the conclusion over this that TV is good for TV.
TV is great for TV.
Yeah, so that's my takeaway. But I really wanted to say thank you so much to Siobhan and to Peter and to Verity for the most wonderful and entertaining conversation. It's been so fascinating to hear your tales. And thank you also to DesignCentral North West for hosting us today. It's just a lovely venue. And thanks also to sofa.com for setting up all the wonderful furniture in the room here.
Yes, and thank you to our wonderful audience. You've been brilliant. You can find the Interior Design Business on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, just about everywhere you listen to podcasts. We're on Instagram at Interior Design Business Pod. This episode of the Interior Design Business is a Wildwood production. Woo!